We have to talk first about the big story of the day, and that is the Supreme Court's latest decision. This one out of Arizona. It has to do with voting laws. Arizona has two laws in particular that were questioned. First, it says that you and only you can mail in or deliver your ballot, right? As opposed to what we have in California and other states, ballot harvesting, where people could come knock on your door, grab your ballots, or you can drop them off somewhere at like the Democratic Party headquarters and they can bring them together and bring them in the back of a truck and just dump them off at the precinct. No, Arizona, you and only you have to deliver your ballot. And you have to vote in your precinct. Otherwise, your vote doesn't count. Those are the laws. Democratic Party sued, saying this violates the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the 15th Amendment. The 15th Amendment says, the right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Now, Democrats say it violated the 15th Amendment, but Arizona law doesn't say black people can't mail in, right? It says everyone has to mail in their ballots themselves, or everyone has to vote in their own precinct. There's nothing in here about race or color or previous condition of servitude. So the court finally came back, and they ruled, drum roll please, 6-3, and said, nice try, Democrats. Those laws do not violate the Voting Rights Act or the 15th Amendment. They said Arizonians, zonies, as we call them here in California, zonies have 27 days to vote early. 27 days! And they said it's not hard to show up at the right precinct. The Supreme Court said the number of people who show up to the wrong precinct and vote and get their ballot thrown out, it's 0.15% of the votes in the 2016 election, and said, yeah, there may be like the slightest disparity, like slightly more black people do it than white people vote at the wrong precinct, but that doesn't violate the 15th Amendment. Now, I did a quick read. I got to go back and find, right? I did not see the court make the argument that I would make, which is how stinking insulting from the Democrats that they think black people are unable to mail in their own ballots or unable to show up to the right precinct like white people are. Great win from the Supreme Court, 6-3 in favor of these common sense voting laws. I wish these laws would go much, much further. Like, it's amazing. Like, the Democrats are still winning on this. 27 days of early voting? That's insane. There should be no days of early voting. Maybe I'll give you one. But we'll save all those for another day. Speaking of elections, I'm loving this New York City election story. It's fantastic. New York City mayor's race, the mayor's primary, they counted 135,000 test ballots. Test ballots. We're not even a whole year since the last presidential election, and all we heard about was, if you question the integrity of the election, that's treason. And the guy in the lead questioned the integrity of the election, and he was right. 135,000 test ballots. Right now, the guy's only up by 16,000. So 135,000 makes a huge difference. And these were counted, these fake ballots, these test ballots, were counted 10 times. They did 10 rounds of recalculating because they have their ranked choice voting system or whatever. So they did 10 rounds of voting before they noticed, these are fake. Keep in mind, Trump lost Arizona by 10,000 votes. Trump lost Wisconsin by 20,000 votes. And there's 135,000 in just New York City. So the question we asked yesterday was, is this corruption or ineptness? Corruption or ineptness? Now, obviously, it's a mix of both. It always is. A few years ago, there was an election in New York City. Months afterwards, they found ballots stuffed in an air conditioning vent for one of the candidates. Oh, I'm sure that was an accident. They were just hot. They're hot ballots. They had to cool them off, right? Do you remember, right before the election, on this show here, we played a PBS NewsHour report about how easy it is to hack into Dominion voting machines in Georgia. All right? I love this story. This story on PBS NewsHour, it wasn't, could an election be hacked? It was shockingly specific. Will Georgia, well, I got the headline. I think we got the headline here. Like, is it possible to hack into Dominion voting machines in Georgia? Yeah, will Georgia's new voting machine? They're incredibly specific. That was October of 2020. PBS ran this whole story about it. This one's from February. Reliability of pricey new voting machines questioned. What? These are about Dominion voting machines. Now, why do they do this? This was a cover. The left did this as a little preemptive cover fire for if Trump won. And the left was going to point to all these stories, be like, oh, look how easy it is to have an election hacked by the Russians. That's what that was. Then after Trump lost, that was a very subtle air quote. Did you see that little? Oh, I don't even know if you could see it. I think it was below I was just right here. After Trump lost, PBS NewsHour comes out with this. This is November 17th. As Trump claims fraud, officials say the election was the most secure. The most. How dare you even suggest otherwise? A month before that, PBS NewsHour, wow, this thing is definitely going to get hacked. 2 days later, most secure ever, what? Come on. So it's corrupt or inept, a mix of both. Let's talk about ineptness in New York City. And it's not just New York City, it's all these election boards. This is the New York Times, October 26th, 2020, so just last year. The headline was, Inside Decades of Nepotism and Bungling at the New York City Elections Board. Nepotism and bungling. The story starts out informing us that the official who oversees voter registration in New York City, the biggest city in the country, is the 80-year-old mother of a former congressman. And the nepotism gets worse from there. There were 12 whistleblowers who came out. One of them said it's really hard to have coworkers who are incapable of performing what they need to do. In the June primary, the New York City Election Board told the state, oh, we're totally ready with mail-in ballots. We got it. No problem. It's all good. And shocker, they weren't. They had to call 2 different companies to print ballots the Sunday before the Tuesday election. 34,000 ballots were mailed to voters the day before the primary. This is, this isn't just like a recent problem. 1940, a city investigation found this election board plagued by illegality, inefficiency, laxity, and waste. 1971, New York Times editorial said it's at best a semi-functioning anachronism, which means it's like an old, pointless thing. In 1985, the city found an almost embarrassing lack of understanding of its job. How great is that? This one's my favorite of them all, though, right? So one of the people who's in charge of appointing the people to this elections commission in New York City, he said, so New York Times says, they've acknowledged some who land jobs at the board have had no prior experience working at election boards, right? People who work at the election commission have had no prior experience in election management, would be a normal sentence. They've acknowledged that some who land jobs at the board have had no prior permanent employment. The guy said, quote, well, it's nice to know that we've sometimes changed the lives of people. These people are unemployable. But it's okay, because at least we've changed their life by giving them a job. And it's not like it's anything important, just the elections of the people who run the city. The New York Elections Board, it's an employment center. It's a unionized employment shop. It's not like our public schools. Right? The main goal of our public schools and the main goal of this election board is to employ people. It's to employ union members. If they ever get around to maybe teaching a kid something, or if they maybe get around to properly running an election, that's like a nice little side bonus. But here's the best line of them all. One of the whistleblowers said, my job was actually like babysitting. I felt like I was working in an insane asylum. What? Maybe you can relate where you were. Why do we trust these people? Why do we continue to trust these people and these bureaucrats?
Wow, that was deep and insightful. I want more of that. Like, subscribe, get more.